I'm gonna do the same thing. Matt, I just realized that I recognize you from a bunch of sketch stuff from, I'm trying to think of how many years ago, but you were on a sketch group that did stuff with Above Average
Yes.
at around the same time that I was on a sketch group that did stuff with Above Average.
Yeah, your name is very familiar to me. I was trying to remember if I was. Did we meet or we just?
I think we ever met. Yeah, you did Good Cop, Great Cop.
Great Cop. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. That's so funny.
Wow.
I was in a sketch group called Tremendosaur with this other guy, Justin Michael, for a handful of
Sounds
years.
super familiar to me. Yeah.
See, this is what the Footcandle Film Festival is all about. Is just letting all let's all network and have some fun here, and that's what you're jumping into. So great. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, guys, but we're ready to start this. So we'll get you going here. Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Jackson with the Footcandle Film Festival over here. Chris Fry, also with the Footcandle Film Festival, and welcome to our virtual festival this year, the Friday night short film selections. Traditionally, this is a night that used to be the opening night. We would actually open the festival with our short film selections from the festival weekend. But since we've grown the festival and we had something on Wednesday night and something on Thursday night, this is now just the Friday night short film selection, nondescript, but still just as much fun and exciting to watch. So thank you for joining us for this live Q&A. We do have some of the filmmakers from the short film selections that you hopefully just saw or have seen earlier in this week that are going to join us here. Now let me go ahead and go around and introduce three of them. So we'll introduce them and tell you what film they're with, and then we'll get them started on some conversations and let you have a chance to ask them questions as well. So up in the top left corner, if we're going Brady Bunch style here, over in the top left, we've got Matt Porter. He is the director of Nighty Night. And then in the top right corner, we have Jacob Reed. He was the director of the film Gum. And then in the bottom square down below, we have Kevin Wells, who is the director of Hebo. So all three of those films were presented in the block that everybody got to see. And we're really excited to have you guys here. How y'all doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, sure. No, it's just really great. And I know on a Friday night, getting you guys together with this, we really do appreciate the time. And again, we wish this could all be in person, but we are kind of working with the situation we've got. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us virtually for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your guys' projects. You guys had kind of a diverse group of projects there. We showed 9 films that were all very kind of different stylistically and unique in their approach. So I'd really love to hear from the three of you to kind of tell us a little bit about your individual project. And most importantly, I'd like to hear kind of what brought you to that project? I mean, was it something you've been sitting on it for a while? Was it something that, I don't know. I'd just love to hear a little bit of the backstory. So I'll just kind of go around between the three of you. Matt, you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, my movie, as you might guess, started for me worrying that I might have sleep apnea, which is not surprising if you've seen the movie. And going through the whole rigmarole, I didn't actually do the sleep in the place because my insurance wouldn't cover it. But I did this version where you take it home and you just torture yourself in the privacy of your home with the same kind of little kit. And then you bring it in and you give it back to them. But I was obsessed with that moment when I'm at the front desk of the sleep place where I could see this little row of rooms. And I talked to a lot of friends that had done it, and I did a lot of research, and I called these places and pretended like I was maybe going to do it and asking all these questions. And over, they would just say to me, like, because I'm not a great sleeper. And I was like, what happens if you can't fall asleep? And literally the line that's in the film was like, if you can't, sooner or later, everyone falls asleep. I got that line a couple times, and I think that led to the film, basically. Like, well, what would it mean to not? It's a very private, sort of intimate thing to not be able to sleep. So
I thought that was great. And as someone who's kind of questioned whether or not I have sleep apnea to some degree, and family members that have, I can relate to some degree. I've always wondered about that sleep study and what that would be like. So it was very cool. And that's great. So I appreciate that. Let's go around. Let's kind of hear from some others here as well. So Jacob, you want to hop on and tell us a little bit about your film Gum, kind of what brought you to putting that film together?
Yeah. So I come from a background in improvisational comedy, and I, as a director, use improv all the time directing, but I never used it for an entire film. And I always kind of wanted to make something that was completely improvised. and two other people I knew from the improv scene, Becky and Susie, who are the actors in the film. I had seen them do a bit where one of them, just as like almost like a recurring bit as friends, would pitch the other one gum as if it was something that didn't exist, and just get into the minutia of how do you explain what gum is if someone doesn't have the context of gum. And so I just thought that would be, and I'd worked with both of them before, and it just felt like a comfortable, creative situation to try to do a completely improvised short. And yeah, so that's where it came from. And it was a fun time.
I apologize. The camera was just on me the whole time while you were giving your answer. I had it flipped accidentally. So I hope everybody heard and can put it with your face there. So I apologize for that. That was my bad. So, and I apologize to everybody that was having to watch my face that whole time. So the two actors, that was an improv film?
Yeah. So not only the dialogue, but the entire front to end, the entire film was improvised, besides the idea of, someone pitching gum to someone else. But what was really fun and collaborative and creative about it is because all three of us were improvisers, we would shoot for a little bit, and then we'd pause, and all three of us would riff from both of the perspectives that are shown in the film. And then the funniest and most interesting lines would be co-opted by the actor playing that role, and then they would kind of filter it through through their lens. So it was almost like all three of us were playing both characters, and then we shot. It actually ended up being about somewhere between 3 and 4 hours of footage.
Wow.
That is, in my opinion, all equally funny, but nobody wants to watch a 4-hour conversation between two people. So we had to edit it.
4 hours about gum?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry. That's not entirely true. It was about, I would say, maybe 3.5 hours about gum, and then half an hour that went on a tangent about balloons.
Oh, right.
That kind of had a beautiful loop in realizing that balloons are basically permanent gum. But ultimately, there wasn't enough time to put that in the short, so we took it out.
I do have to tell you, Jacob, that I'm sending your film. I'm sending a ticket to watch to my son. My middle son hates gum. He thinks gum is like the dumbest, worst thing. He can't stand it when people chew gum. So I've sent him the film because I said, you have to see this. I think he'll appreciate it.
He's right. I chew gum and love gum occasionally, but your son is right. It is so bizarre that it exists.
That's so great. We'll be coming back here in a minute to everybody to get some other stuff. Let's go over down to Kevin. Kevin had the short documentary film Hebo, which was about the artist Sam Zell. And Kevin, tell us a little bit about you're in Hillsborough, North Carolina, so that's where the film was actually shot and took place. Tell us a little bit about kind of what brought you into that project and how you got started on that.
Well, it's very unusual for me to make a film so close to home, and so that was intentional. I was looking for a project that I could do that would be very close to me. A lot of my other films required me traveling across the country, and so one of the things I was looking for is what can I find that like I could do now. I just wanted to do something immediate, and another aspect is that my wife had been asking me for a while, can you like make a film that's like positive? And so I don't. Not all of my films have been negative, but they've had a negative component. So either a murder or, I did one on a preacher who yells at people and tells them they're all, going to go to hell. And then I actually done a few films on that. And so, I've been attracted to sort of negative topics. And so my wife was like, "Can you do something positive?" Okay, I'll do something close to home, and I'll find a positive story. So I found a story about a guy who lost his vision and thought he couldn't do art anymore. So this was my version of positive. And so, I saw a story in the local paper about an artist, and so he's a maintenance man at sort of an old school village here in Hillsborough called the Daniel Boone.
Yeah.
And so I saw a story about him and that he had discovered sort of a love for painting very late in life. And if you go anywhere around, like I lived in Durham for a long time, if you go to a lot of places in Durham, they have his artwork on the wall. And I'd always seen his name, but never met him and never talked to him. And so I saw this story about local artist who had a stroke and went partially blind and thought he wasn't going to be able to paint again. And at the time of the article, it was talking about he was sort of trying to figure out how he was going to continue because he really didn't want to give it up. And so it seemed like an interesting story. Yeah. So I just called him up. I mean, I thought about it for a while and thought of some things that, sounded like it had potential, and called him up to talk to him. And I mean, I pretty much knew, from the moment I started talking to him that it was going to work. Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with projects that failed because you talk to him and it's like, this is not a good fit. And with Sam, it felt like he was so open, invited me to come the next day to a studio. So I did. And, just knew like the chemistry was there that it would work. And, he was always working and I was always invited to come film. And so, I knew I had something once I met him. He seemed like he seemed like the kind of subject that would be very game for doing a film like that. So I think you came across a really good subject for the film for sure. Yeah. And it was a combination of being open and not being too performative. Mm-hmm. And so, some people are really open and want to be filmed and are like playing to the camera. And he had a really good feel where it was like, sure, come film. And then he would just do things, and that's not that common, that immediately it's just like, he would talk to me, but it wasn't like always performing. He was just being himself. Yeah. And so, that was awesome. And so that's great. Yeah, all right. Let me bring it back to all three again here. So, we're going to go ahead. Chris has got a question from the audience. I'm going to let him go with that before I move on to a couple things I've got. So, Chris?
So I've got a question for Jacob. The person was wondering, were there any other products besides gum and balloons that were considered? And if so, what were they?
No, it was always gum. It was always going to be about gum for the main thing. Just because that's what they would do the bit about when it was just like a little, short little bit they do with each other. And, it was one of those, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of things. And balloons came organically out of that. We had talked about, and I think that if Susie and Becky's schedules allowed, because they're both incredibly talented and busy people, the two of them pitching anything, I think would be so funny. But it all came out of, I think, this philosophy within the three of us come from a theater called the Upright Citizens Brigade. And I think a lot of that philosophy is like slowly peeling away something that's unusual and trying to understand why it is the way it is and using that as a trajectory to put comedy on. So I think Gum just lined up really well with that type of thinking.
Yeah. It was great. Well, the two of them played off each other so incredibly well. So I was curious if they've been working together for a while, and it sounds like they obviously had. So that was great to hear.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember, and I'm sure I don't have this exactly right, but I want to say that the two of them have been improvising together for, more than a decade, if not close to 15, 20 years. Not always just the two of them, but in the same circles. They're also such gifted performers. I think if you threw them with someone they'd never met, they would probably feel pretty close to the same way.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right, Chris, we have another question for the group.
Yes. So this is for Matt. I was just wondering, this actually comes from me because I was just wondering, you said the idea you kind of sleep apnea and that you were kind of thinking about that yourself. When it came to casting, how did you work on casting that?
It's a good question. I had just been working on Chris Gethard, who plays this guy trying to fall asleep. I had just worked on his TV show, which had a show on True TV that I had been working as the field director for. So we had been spending a lot of time like flying to Austin to do like one thing where he like learns how to like shoot a bow and arrow and then flying back the next day, like weird little things like that would mostly get cut down to like 18 seconds. And so we were talking about how it would be fun to do something a little longer together. And I had written this a little while ago, not necessarily with anyone in mind. And I was like, I think Chris actually could be really fun for this. And he was kind of game, and he's very nice, just like super sweet, good guy and a good boss. And probably also felt a little guilty that I had to do so much flying, and was happy to help me out and be in this short. And then the other role, played by Zach Cherry. Zach, I know from the comedy world. Jacob, I bet you've crossed paths with Zach Cherry at some point. He's sort of an upright citizen brigade adjacent comedy person who, if you recognize him, is in a million things now and is really, really funny. And I just, once I thought of him, I was like, I actually don't think I can do this if he doesn't say yes. Like, he's just so good and so the right, like, he's a really good version of naturalistic and still a little odd in this really fun way, and really grounded and a good balance to Chris and stuff. So yeah, so it came from knowing both of them basically, and just pleading it for both of them to do it, and both of them luckily having the time to do it, because it all came together kind of quickly. So it was very nice that they both were available.
That's great. I should have mentioned in the intro, but Matt actually had a film play at our Footcandle Film Festival last year, a short film called Damage that played also in our opening night, Friday night selections as well. So we're very happy to have you back for the second year there, for sure. So
I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah,
thank you.
Great. I think there's some questions. I saw questions pop up for Kevin. So,
Yeah.
you wanna go ahead?
So several people saying they love the film and they want to know two questions. Do you own a piece of Sam Ezel's art? Was one of the first questions they wanted to know.
Oh, he's going to go get it right now. So perfect.
That's awesome.
I think that's our answer right there.
Yep,
So.
there you go. And would you?
I got the yard dog right here. So
Nice.
Called. And
That's
I
awesome.
got a few. My daughter has a pink version in her room.
Awesome.
Every time I would go film him, he'd be trying to give me. He'd try to give me, and I felt bad because he sells them for like a decent amount of money.
Sure.
And I was like, Sam, I can't take your art, but okay, here you go, thank you. Yeah.
Then they also wanted to know: Did Sam end up watching the completed film? And then, if so, what did he think of it?
Oh no, yeah. I showed it to him before releasing it. For
Okay.
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've done that for all of my films. Not showing it necessarily for permission, although if he said this is untruthful, you'd rethink a lot of things.
Sure.
But I wanted to make sure that he saw it and I could hear from him before releasing it into the world. And no, he loved it. I mean, it was more like, Sam, please don't, like, I'll give it to you, but like, don't put it on, like, don't send it to anybody. I was trying to, I mean, not that he was going to, but he wasn't trying to fight its release. I mean, he was really, I think, happy with the film.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, one thing, I mean, he's so prolific and has so many pieces of art. I mean, one thing that I wasn't able to capture as much is just the sheer amount of art that he owns. This is one facet. I showed some footage, like there's some footage of him in a warehouse, but every time I was with him, he was selling pieces of art that he had collected from other people. The Smithsonian was coming to pick up art. I mean, there's just such a sheer amount of stuff. I was sort of worried. I mean, I just couldn't get into every facet of his life because I wanted it to stay short. But Sam was really, I think, happy with how it turned out, and felt it captured sort of the essence of what was going on.
Sure. That's great. It's good deal. I have a question kind of to run around to all three of you. And it's yes, I know it's probably a very typical film festival Q&A type question, but I'm still going to throw the softball out and let you guys hit it any way you want to. We love short films. Actually, it's probably why we look forward to the short film selection so much in the festival that we run here, is how much we enjoy the short film format. And I do know, of course, with online distribution and online ways of viewing, short films are more accessible than they probably have been in quite a while. But it's still not, we still haven't got that point where just everybody flocks to short films. And it's still, you guys, it takes a lot of effort, I know, to kind of get them out there and to get people seeing them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of how you feel, because I know you've all done some different versions of either short films or different pieces like this. Kind of what's your thoughts on the state of short filmmaking, and are you feeling really good about, is it moving in a positive direction as far as distribution and as far as awareness? Or do you think we still got some ways to go through festivals and other ways to kind of keep promoting the short film format? Now, we'll start with Matt. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think It's an interesting question, and I think it's one of the tough things with shorts is that there's always some aspect to them that it isn't the thing you go see in the movie theater. You know, it's going to always be tough to get big audiences for shorts, but I think as a filmmaker, as a creator, I think that we happen to have chosen an art form that it's very tough to go to the gym and build your muscle doing. I mean, you know, like we were talking, Jacob and I, coming from comedy and doing sketches and stuff. That was one way to kind of build the muscle, you know. But there's many ways in which it's just an art form that's tough to constantly be finding new ways to just have an output and go through the whole process. There's so much learning at every stage of making a film that you can only do by doing it. And if you only do it in the form of feature films, A, you might never do it, and B, you might only do it like once every 7 years. And it's just not enough to, you know, if you're a painter, you know, or if you're a sculptor, you know, you can do it every day in some small way. And obviously you can write every day and this and that. But if what you want to do is tell stories visually with camera and get it to an audience, you have to honor small ideas that need to be made via short, even if you're not quite sure what the life of it is going to be. I think because it's important to exercise that muscle and to know what it feels like to have your point of view hit up against an audience and to get that feedback and to have a communication with other filmmakers and be involved in film festivals. It's just part of the growth of being in that art form that is not really possible any other way. That being said, the sort of mechanics of getting shorts made and getting them seen is constantly changing. And I guess what we can hope is that maybe there will be more weird new ways for people to watch shorts now that places like these new streaming services exist where length doesn't matter as much. You know, we're not fitting into certain blocks in the same way. You can watch all the Pixar shorts on Disney Plus. I mean, it's sort of like there is a little bit of a new place they might exist, but I think filmmakers will keep making them forever because otherwise it's like you can only hit home runs and you don't get to play baseball, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love it. Jacob, you have any additional thoughts on that, or?
I mean, that's a great answer. I don't feel like I have any understanding of or knowledge of the film festival circuit in order to be able to critique any part of it.
Sure.
But everything that Matt said about just, you know, having to make shorts as a way of expression is super true. I think, you know, I talk to friends or my wife all the time about different projects that I'm working on. And one thing I always come up against, especially talking to other creatives who, you know, like painting or sculpture or writing, there are ways that are possible to do it completely on your own in a vacuum with, you know, potentially no money. And anytime I make a short, I feel like it's this Herculean effort to con friends into helping me. And then at the end of the day, it's like baking a beautiful cake and just chucking it off a cliff. And the feedback loop is sometimes nothing. And that probably doesn't sound optimistic or encouraging. Well, yeah, I guess that's all I have to add. I intend to keep doing it.
Well, we hope you guys keep making short films because, again, we love them so much. Kevin, you have any input or thoughts on that?
I mean, just from a maker standpoint, I mean, I'd gone 4 years before I made Hebo for my last film, and so it was just imperative. It wasn't just, I mean, I just wanted to make something now, you know, and I found a story that was interesting to me, and I was not interested in taking 3 years to, you know, to make a documentary feature film. I mean, another aspect to it too is that I've just been attracted to stories that I can tell in a short form, and so now they could be told longer, but just for whatever reason, a lot of the films I've made, I mean, have been under 30, and I felt like that was the appropriate length for them. It could be stretched out, but it didn't need to be. I mean, it would have been artificial. And so, I mean, I have an idea. I mean, at least one film project that probably is closer to feature length that I've been considering. And so, you know, I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to do that, but it's mostly been just from a making standpoint. It just made more sense to make short films. in terms of like distributing, I mean, there was a time like in March where I got kind of depressed because like every festival shut down. And it's sort of been strange in that once everyone shut down, but then started going virtual. I mean, I've had like a ton of screenings for them. So but it's also, you're also disconnected from the experience. So it's really strange where it's like you have a lot of screenings and I really do enjoy doing the Q&As, but you're missing out on the audience participation with it, except for the Q&A. So it's a really strange disconnect where it's like both getting screened and feeling a little alienated at the same time.
I know. Unfortunately, you just have me and Chris nodding our heads to you instead of a room full of people. So for that, we certainly apologize on that. So yeah.
But even people asking questions is like it just feels, I don't know. Sometimes you make stuff and you feel like, did anyone watch it?
Yeah.
It feels so great, and for you guys to have a forum like this and to even do. I've been in a lot of festivals that went virtual, but going virtual just meant that the films were available online. So to have there be this type of interaction still is really, really wonderful, and you know,
Thanks.
It fills me up creatively to have stuff like this.
Yeah. It's the most important part of the process, quite honestly, to us, is the discussion about the film. I mean, you can watch a film and you watch it in a vacuum. You have one experience. You watch it with a crowd. I think you have a different, and you get to talk about it. So, Chris, do we have, speaking of that crowd,
Actually,
do we have some questions from the audience?
We have a question. And Kevin, you kind of started talking about it. So it was like you were reading their mind. And it was a question for everybody, but how has COVID affected your projects this year? And maybe these, you talked about the festival kind of repercussions of them, but then ones that you're planning, you know, hopefully to start work on, and how has that kind of shifted things for you? And I guess whoever wants to take it first.
Well, I mean, I was working on a film. I'd been doing pre-production, and I'd done a test shoot, and I was starting a film in March, and it just shut down totally. And so I don't know when that's going to start back. I'd like to start it. It's just tricky. I have 2 young kids, and so, you know, they're not in school, and so it's like, you know, I'm also working remote. A lot of people can, you know, in the same boat. So it's like trying to imagine a day where I can film is just like, I can't even imagine when that's going to be. Yeah. Sure. But, you know, as soon as possible, I mean, a lot of the film can be outside, so I could feel safe doing it. It's just a matter of the world getting together and like being able to go back to school and like have places to have.
And Kevin,
children.
you're a teacher, right?
Yeah, and so I'm a professor at UNCG.
Oh,
UNC
okay, wonderful,
teaching film production, and so, you know, during the week, that's what I'm doing. And, you know, in the past, typically I'm productive like in the summer because I don't have to work, you know, thankfully, and so I can shoot a film, which is what my hope was, you know, last summer. Sure. But I mean, I think I'm going to be able to do it. It's just a matter of sort of logistics. A lot of the film can be shot. And, you know, with the festival thing's been going fine, I think, in COVID. It just, you know, with the exception of not being able to go in person. But, and I'm trying to think, you know, I mean, I have that. And then there's sort of a long form project I've been considering, sort of a true crime documentary. But
going back to those happy subjects again. So I see.
But to be honest, I've got it's a story I really want to tell, but I'm a little jaded with the true crime genre, right? It feels a little unethical. I don't know right now. And so I'm trying to find a way the film deserves to be made rather than just made because I think it's interesting, because it's kind of a tough topic.
We'll be anxious to hear about that, hopefully in the future at some point. So any other COVID related thoughts from Matt or Jacob, either one, just any impact it's had or thoughts you have on how it's affected the film business for you?
I mean, I'll just add that it's obviously changed everything. And even for things that are kind of in development or kind of in early stages, I mean, it just creates this strange thing that is not very conducive to an industry that is so based around timelines and money that is kind of contingent on timelines and stuff, for everyone to not know. Not knowing is a very dangerous thing for such a sort of kind of, you know, a very careful industry in the sense that it costs a lot of money to do these things. And even, you know, shorts as simple as mine, it's like, you know, it's tough to take something like that and then hold it and not know when to do it. The window comes and you have to go for it. So it has been tough for shorts. I had a short that I finished end of last year and then was able to kind of finish early on that I directed but didn't write. And then beyond that, it's been mostly writing and sort of early development-y things. I mean, most of my work has been in TV, so it's like all that is very hard to find a job in that weird space, But it's it's going to be a lot of interest. We're all deep in our souls, so that means that there will be interesting work in that sense. Well, there'll be something to say for sure.
Yeah, I was telling somebody this is the longest period of time I've ever gone not being in a movie theater. I think it's going on 6 months that I haven't been in an actual movie theater, and it's depressing. So I'm just trying to find ways to cope with it right now. Jacob, anything on the COVID side you wanted to chime in on?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to both of those. I also over the last couple of years have mostly worked in the capital E entertainment industry, and any jobs that I was on hold for, or the type of things I normally do aren't happening, which is scary and weird. And you think about like, what does it do for your, not only your income but your career, and now things are starting to happen, and I have some almost things cooking, but then you feel weird about like, is this actually safe for us to be doing? And I also have a small child. So, I mean, my wife and I both work from home, and we have a 1-year-old, like just freshly one, but like running around, and we're exhausted all the time. And so just to be creatively inspired is hard right now. I was working on a script for a short that I'm so excited, or I was so excited about. I think I still am, with a good friend of mine, but it was all centered around the medical world, and it was a kind of comedy drama, and almost everything about the ins and outs of it, I have no idea if they still are reality anymore. So that's not happening. But on the flip side, I participated in a film challenge with some other friends where we made a documentary in 5 days, where they give you a loose prompt, like any film challenge where you can kind of make something of your own, but you come up with the idea, shoot it, and edit it all within 5 days. And so that's one of the only things I've made and finished during this whole period of time, because we had to. And thank goodness, because it felt good to actually like make something.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of creativity out there, which has been nice kind of in this time to figure out how can we do things with the resources we have, the locations we have, the people we can or can't interact with, and however we do that. So it's been kind of fun to see some of the creativity at work, I guess, if you got to look for a positive in the whole situation.
I do have a question
right
for some of the other filmmakers just on this before we move on, if that's okay. I mean, I've just been sort of racking my brain around. It's like, obviously this is very monumental what's happening right now, but I don't want to think about it at all in the future. And so I'm wondering, like, how are we handling this in films where it's like something that's so important, but it's like, I want to pretend like this is not happening. Like in the future, like I don't want to watch a film about COVID, so like, how do you handle something that's like both very important, but it's also like, I'm sick. Like, this is a nightmare. Like, I don't want to watch entertainment about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Jacob, you have something? No, I was just going to say that I actually have been writing a feature over the last few weeks that I'm sort of grounding the bases on. And I had an idea that I'd had a few years ago. And all of a sudden I'd started it years ago, and then I left it. I couldn't quite crack it. I wasn't feeling it. And then I started it up in the last 2 weeks, and I've gotten really engaged with it. And I realized the reason is not because it has anything to do with this moment, but it thematically feels at least relevant to some of the feelings. And I feel like that's the only way to come through it, is like, I don't think anyone wants to, like, a friend of mine sent me a pilot he was writing where it was like everybody was in masks going on hikes. And I was like, please, I don't need this. Like, just, it was like a rom-com too. I was like, it doesn't need to be during now. Just make it any time, any other time, and make it the 1740s. It'd be better than this, But he was, I think with this idea that I've been writing as a feature, I was like, oh, I think this feels relevant because it's sort of about how it's feeling right now in a thematic way. And I could imagine people maybe being okay reflecting on that or getting some insight via art on those feelings, but definitely has nothing specifically to do with what this year has been. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I've actually heard a lot of people kind of commenting the same thing, that they just don't really want to deal with any form of entertainment dealing with this because it's so widespread and we're all being affected by it. I think there's just this universal feeling we don't want to explore there. Jacob, I think you were piping in. You had something on that, or
I think this is why we know so little about the Spanish flu. Like
true.
there was when the pandemic first started, I feel like everyone was like, did you know about, like, we all kind of knew the Spanish flu was this thing that happened, but I was reading some article about how it was almost not at all discussed in any kind of art or media after that period of time. And if it was maybe done in a way where, there were things that we thought were mostly about World War I that, looking back on it in the context we have now, they were like, oh, maybe it was like the World War and the angst from this pandemic or whatever. But I think if we get through this, or when we get through this, we all just like, it didn't happen. Society moves forward.
Yeah.
That's not a healthy way to cope, but I think that's how human beings have to cope with stuff.
Yeah, I kind of feel that
Or
way too.
in 20 years, someone does something and it's like, oh, wow. But
I do want to just kind of give a moment to kind of, as we start to kind of wind this up a little bit, I'd love to hear from each of you kind of, other than, obviously getting the short film that we just saw out and visible to people, are there other projects, are there other things that you are working on, or even if not, any way that some of the audience can connect with you, follow you, or any other way you want to promote that if people are really kind of keen to see some of your future work, how could they do that? So just anything you want to plug or anything you want to tell us that you're working on, love to hear from you guys. So Matt, do you have anything you want to share or plug or talk about?
I mean, I haven't made much new. I had a podcast at the beginning for the first couple months. I did a podcast twice a week, and that was a great outlet and definitely helped me not lose my mind. I did like 30 episodes of that. There is actually an episode about gum.
Cool.
So if you want to hear like a bit of a cross thing, you could go listen to this episode about gum from like 4 months ago. It's relatively
I'm sorry, Matt. Is it a podcast about the film Gum, or is it actually just a podcast about gum in general as a concept?
No, it's like an hour-long conversation about gum.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so it feels important to mention in this context, but I would say that I have nothing specific to promote. I'm doing a lot of writing this year, which has been a nice thing, and hopefully I can come back in the future with something that I've written during this time period, but I've got nothing specific to point people towards except that I have a website and all the things I made before when the world existed are there,
Well, Matt, if you do put anything together and you make it in time next year for submission, we'd love to see you go for the three-peat and see if what you can do 3 years in a row for us.
I would love. My sister did just move to Raleigh, so I think that I might be slowly becoming I'll try to get in every year so I can kind of see her. It can be a good regular thing.
That'd be awesome. Jacob, you got anything you want to promote, talk about, or tell us that you're coming up in the future?
I don't have no idea when this documentary we made is going to be available for people to watch, but I'm really proud of it. So I'll just make that a cryptic thing.
Sure.
But I made this thing toward the end of last year that if you've got nothing to do for an hour because you're trapped inside of your house, it's just kind of a fun thing for film nerds. But I've been talking about it for years, and I finally edited together about 100 years worth of New Year's Eve scenes in chronological order, set to music. So you can just watch, I don't know, you put it on in the background while you're doing other stuff, or, for your socially distant New Year's party this year. I do a lot of film kind of projects that I don't really know who they're for or why anyone would watch them, but I have to make them. And that's one of them. It's on my Vimeo. If you just look up like Vimeo Jacob Reed, or I think it's called, I'll let Kevin answer and I'll look up what I called it on Vimeo.
Great. Yeah, please share that with us. Yeah. And before we go, Jacob, somebody did ask kind of a question specifically, a real quick one for you. Are there any outtakes from any fun bloopers from Gum that ever make surface?
Yeah. They're not in any form that people could see them, which is a bummer. Maybe at some point I'll go through and edit those. because just editing everything down to something that was cohesive for the short was so monumental that once I was done, I was like, I don't want to deal with any of that ever again. But they exist.
Sure. That's great.
That's great.
All right. Well, then, Kevin, anything projects? I know you kind of talked already a little bit about some of the things that maybe you were wanting to do or interested in doing, but anything else you want to talk about going on in your world or upcoming at all?
Yeah, I edited a film last fall. I work as a documentary film editor as well, and so I edited a film called All the Possibilities, and it's been doing the festival rounds. It's about a I'm not sure why I've been doing a lot of films on artists, but here we go. It's about an artist, Vernon Pratt, who's in Durham. It's a painting called All the Possibilities of Filling in Sixteenths. It's really hard to describe, but it's basically he explored all the ways of filling in a square divided into 16 pieces, and he painted every one of these variations. And so there are 65,536 possibilities of filling in a square divided into 16 pieces. And so it's a massive work of art. Just imagine the United Nations with panels of art all around it. Like that is the scale that it takes. And he died in the early 2000s and it had never been shown, but he diligently painted every single one of them. And it was displayed, I think, 2 years ago in Raleigh for the first time. And so Marsha Gordon and Louis Cherry are directors that I've worked with in the past and on another film, and they shot it, and I was able to edit it. So thankfully that was done before this all started, and so that's playing as well. Now that sort of Hebo is sort of fading out in terms of the amount of festivals that's going in.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. And again, I'm thinking about making a long form true crime doc on a unsolved triple murder that happened where I grew up.
Oh wow!
Back when I was growing up, and so
where did you grow up, Kevin?
I grew up in Williamston, North Carolina.
Sure, I know where that is.
Middle of nowhere, and I mean, we got like a Walmart, and if you're from North Carolina, you'd know Bojangles, but that's pretty much what we have. Very small town, a few stoplights, and it happened just down the road, like 10 miles in a town called Windsor, which is an incredibly small town.
Yeah,
and it's been something I've wanted to make for a really long time. I've just been trying to find the right way to make it, and so I'm sort of considering that now.
Well, I will say, and it'll give me a chance to just give a quick plug here for something too. So, Kevin, this would apply to you, unfortunately, just to you, as it's really meant for North Carolina-based filmmakers. We do have a grant program that we actually take all the proceeds from the ticket sales for this festival, and we funnel it into a filmmaker grant program. So every year we grant out money to filmmakers that pitch their projects, and we have a committee that reviews all the applications, and we dole out the money to try to just help in any way we can with productions. And we just started with ones that have to have some production level in North Carolina. We hope to be expanding it based on how successful it is over time, but it is something we're pretty important to us. So I encourage you, Kevin, if you get to the point where you get those projects kind of ready to roll, let us know and see if there's anything that can be done to help that. So,
okay, thank you.
Great. Jacob, I believe you had something else to add in there?
Yeah, well, so if you Google search Jacob Reed New Year's Eve, you'll find my video, and then also another guy named Jacob Reed performing a cello piece that is unrelated at all.
That's not you. That is not you, Jacob. Okay, good.
I've been working on it for too long, but I'm doing a podcast called Jacob Reed and Me, where each episode I interview a different person who's also named Jacob Reed, and it's like a MacGuffin to talk about how we're all different, but we're also all the same. So I have crazy serial killer style spreadsheet of 400 people throughout the world and everything I've been able to find out about them.
That's so great.
That's great.
But, I was going to ask if there was time. I had a question I was curious about asking the other filmmakers. I know we're trying to wrap it up.
Go right ahead. I think we got some more time left still. So
because Kevin, you were talking about documentary, and I just finished this. I've done like unscripted stuff for comedy projects or for commercials before, but I've never really done a documentary before this. And Matt, I don't know if you've done doc stuff or if you've mostly just done scripted or unscripted comedy, but I was curious if you guys noticed that if you have done both, if you approach them from a similar place, or how they're different, or why you mostly do doc if you don't do narrative, or why you mostly do narrative if you don't do doc. Yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of curious about other people's process.
Trying to think about how to answer that. I've shot narrative films for my friends and I love doing it. I've just never been attracted to it personally for the stories that I want to tell. And I guess the way I've treated it is if I find a story that I cannot tell through nonfiction, film, then I'm certain. I actually don't like watching documentaries that much. I mean, I do like watching some, but I almost watch exclusively narrative because when I watch doc, I feel like I'm analyzing it too much. And so, of course, there are some documentaries that I love and I love watching, but it's sort of like too close to home. In some ways, though, I mean, the way that you shoot observational style documentaries is very narrative in its approach, where the way that you would construct a scene, the way I might try to construct a scene is almost identical to how I'd construct it if I was doing a fictional scene. The difference is that there's the added component of I'm not telling them where to be. And so there's sort of the live component of I don't know what's going to happen. And so I might be getting my master shot and they say the most important thing in the world that I'm really mad now that I missed, or I go to get a reaction shot and I miss something. And so there is that component, but it's also really fun, having that spontaneity of being. So a lot of times I film in a very fictional style, although it's more, I'm moving more than I would if I was doing a fictional scene. Mm-hmm. In terms of the stories, it's just been, I don't know why. I mean, it's really strange that I've been attracted to documentary and attracted to a type of documentary where I'm never in the film. So it's like I'm constantly erasing the fact that I made it. And through the style, it's filmed in a style where I'm not acknowledged. And so it's like it's like layers upon layers of like erasing myself from it. So I don't know. I don't know why that is. Like I want to say something, but I don't want it to feel like it's coming from me. So it's sort of like a strange way of doing that. It'll take some therapy, I guess, to get to the real reason why that's the case.
All right, Matt.
I'll just add that I feel the same way watching narrative. So I feel like whenever I go to film festivals, all I want to do is see the docs because I'm like, well, I read the descriptions. These are probably all incredible. Whereas you read all the narratives and you're like, well, who knows, Yeah. And I feel like I think you're probably doing the right thing then if that's how you feel.
Well, guys, I think we are going to go ahead and be wrapping this up. I did just want to say, I'll say personally in closing, I wanted to say to all three of you guys, Matt, appreciate the two films that we've seen of yours so far at our festival these last couple of years. I love the fact that it's, it takes a very, some awkwardness to a situation, but it has such a great warmth to it as well in the stories. And it was, I'll say the bedtime story scene was really affecting. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, that film this year. So really, really enjoyed that. And then
thank you,
Jacob with Gum. Chris was over here as I was watching that film earlier, and he saw me busting out laughing in that film. So thank you for Gum. That's exactly the kind of humor I was needing these days. So thank you very much. It worked perfectly. And then Kevin, I was also going to say too, you're probably going to get some audience here in this local area. We have a huge folk art following. And I think just the story of Hebo and profiling that artist and showing the work, there's a lot of people in this area that are big folk art aficionados. And we've got a great folk art exhibit at our Hickory Museum of Art right here in town. So don't be surprised if you start getting some connections or people asking questions or wanting to find out more about some other work you're doing in the art field. So
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all very much for being a part of this tonight. Again, I'm Alan Jackson and Chris Fry here with the Footcandle Film Festival. We are going to be continuing films throughout the entire rest of the weekend, as well as the live discussions with filmmakers at scheduled times. But again, this is a virtual festival, so watch the films anytime you'd like to. And all of the discussion sessions are being recorded, so you can watch them on demand after you watch the film at a later date. So we hope you just fill the weekend with some great films. We got plenty of great other selections coming up the rest of the weekend. And although we miss seeing everybody in person, we hope that the virtual festival is providing you with a good, comfortable experience to enjoy some great